Jolly ho, everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of Talking Taker, our encyclopedic exploration digging up the career of the dead man. My name is Alex Dorio, and I'm terrible at accents. And I am one of your hosts and co-hosts of this journey. I am joined, as always, by my tag team partner, my fellow creature of the night, my partner in Dead Man Talking, Travis White. Travis, you sound like you're from London, mate.
You sound like you're from London, mate. I love that part. Oh, you went Australian for a second there. Hello, Governor.
It's all the same, right? Same queen, same prime minister.
I don't know.
At one point,
Australia?
they were a colony.
Oh yeah, they were a British colony.
Yeah, way back when. Well, this is episode number 41 of our encyclopedic exploration, and of course, it's a great Dave Matthews song, and we've got a great match coming up to go along with that, apropos of nothing regarding Dave Matthews. But there you go. I did mention, we mentioned Dave Matthews in our last episode.
We did.
One of your favorite middle school bands.
Former, yeah, absolutely. Former favorites. So, anyway, he was good while it lasted. So, kind of like Undertaker's championship run.
True.
It's come to an end. But, here we go. We get his rematch here.
We are talking, of course, about One Night Only, 1997, September 1997, one of the very first, I believe actually the very first UK exclusive pay-per-view, where The Undertaker is going to challenge Bret Hart in his rematch for the WWF Championship, in a match that I'm going to guess that a lot of you listening out there have probably never seen before. I don't think I had ever seen it before today. Maybe one time randomly in the past I might have seen it. Travis, I know you said you had not seen this one before we're covering it for the show. And it really doesn't fit into the storyline progression so much of the story that we're telling, but it is a pay-per-view match. And it's quite the match as well. It's a heck of a match to watch. So we're kind of doing this one as sort of a bonus episode, if you will, just an additional episode, something to add on to our discussion before we jump into quite the legendary match next week as we talk about Hell in the Cell. But it's an important match because of obviously the importance of being the first ever UK-only pay-per-view, and there is some cool stuff to talk about, so we thought we would throw it in there along our, encyclopedic exploration.
Well, yeah, I mean, when we started this, we said we're going to go through every pay-per-view match, and I know we skipped a couple of the first initial Royal Rumbles when Taker was just in them, but, we kind of reconvened and said, we're doing every pay-per-view, and this technically is a pay-per-view. It kind of, like you said, it kind of disrupts the story that's been going on and been told, but it's a little bit of a story. No build-up on television as we'll try to recap things here. There's no build-up on TV at all. But
right, and we will circle back around on next week's episode because there are, between Ground Zero, which we covered last week, and this One Night Only show, there are 2 episodes of Raw, right. But all of that, they really don't mention this matchup at all. It's all building up to In Your House Bad Blood. So we're going to cover all that on next week's episode because it all ties in with that match and not so much this match.
Right, absolutely. Because this one has no build on TV, but we'll cover all that stuff because that's part of those 2 episodes of Raw are telling that story toward Bad Blood. Hell in a Cell, and we'll get back to those. So those of you listening, don't worry about that. We will hit those because we're just going in chronological order though here. But this is an interesting night. Like you said, I was reading on some of the I don't remember if it was the Observer recaps or PW Torch or something, but it was saying that this was kind of what led to how we get WWE going over there twice a year now. I just found that out this afternoon. I don't know. That was speculation. Meltzer or Keller, I can't remember. But anyway, they kind of started this deal with Sky Sports, did a pay-per-view here, UK-only exclusive, and then this is the reason. I think as we are taping this, the Raw brand is over in England. So anyway, that's how we came to know that WWE goes over there twice a year now, usually in the spring and once in the fall. So
that's cool. So this jumped off of that, and they're all fun shows. I mean, I think they're all available on the WWE Network. Usually, they did Rebellion, they did Insurrection, Mayhem in Manchester, I think they did once or twice, and they're all pretty fun shows. And this one included, it has some unique matchups on there. There's a there's a Patriot versus Flash Funk matchup in the middle of the show for no real reason. There's, of course, the main event of the show. That's what this pay-per-view is famous for. Shawn Michaels versus British Bulldog for the European Championship in an incredible match and a really, really heated match and a really, really heated finish, of course, where Shawn Michaels beats British Bulldog in his home country in front of, like, I can't remember, it's like his dying cousin or sister or something like that.
Or sister-in-law who's dying of cancer. He dedicates the match to her and everything.
Just wild stuff.
Yeah,
and
weird.
Most of you, if you've seen a match from this show, you've probably seen that one, and it's a great one. It's worth going out of your way to see. But this one that we're going to cover tonight, kind of a hidden gem.
Yeah, I was really entertained. It was a really good match. I believe in Bret's autobiography. What was that one called? It was like 9,000 pages.
I think it's just called Hitman, or maybe just Bret Hart, something like that. But yeah, oh man, it's one of the best wrestling books out there. But it's huge.
Yeah, he says in that book that this is his last great WWF match. So I thought that was interesting.
He's probably right. Yeah.
Yeah, because imagine if Montreal would have gone. I think he said in the interview last year that was supposed to go for like another 15, 20 minutes or something. So that match probably would have been it, but this was probably his last greatest match. I would agree.
And he's kind of he's kind of hurt for the October pay-per-view. He ends up having to work a tag match for that one. So yeah, he's probably right about that.
Yeah. And allegedly it was scheduled to be Bret versus Austin, but we know that botched Tombstone Piledriver from Owen back at SummerSlam kind of reshuffled those plans. So
that makes sense.
We get Bret versus Undertaker here with really, like we said, no build-up on TV at all. But anyway, but you mentioned something before we get to this show. You mentioned something that they maybe 2 episodes ago, that there was this WWF special on Sky Sports that's called the Fab Four. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I had never heard of it until we started doing this podcast, but it started coming up on YouTube when I was searching for clips for what we put on our social media pages at Talking Taker, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. We try to put up fun clips leading up to each episode, some of the most memorable, important stuff, and some rare stuff we try to put up on there. And I started seeing this Fab Four interview with Undertaker, and it's framed sort of like a shoot interview or maybe like a DVD interview that we would see in later years that where they kind of break kayfabe a little bit, with Jim Ross hosting and interviewing The Undertaker. So I did a little research on it, and apparently these aired as sort of a pay-per-view special, I guess, or maybe on one of the sports channels there in the UK, with feature-length, I think hour-long interviews with Undertaker, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and the British Bulldog. They're all kind of, in 1997, they didn't really go quite in depth on these behind-the-scenes interviews that they do nowadays, like on the network, where everything is completely.
Kayfabe is dead.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Kayfabe's alive during this interview, but it's like in the gray area in the middle.
Yeah, it's really, really cool, and it's available on DVD in the UK, not in the US, but you can find it, and we've got it posted on our social media this week. You can find it fairly easily, the Undertaker ones at least. I'm not sure if you can find the other ones. I wasn't able to find the other ones. I was only able to find the Undertaker one, really. But there's a lot of cool stuff in here, and they kind of spend an hour basically going through his entire WWF career up to that point, even so much as talking about his debut with Brother Love and talking about their connection with Brother Love as well. So they're trying to sort of retcon and explain all of the Undertaker's history. They dive into Brother Love. They dive into the meaning of the urn. His connection with Paul Bearer, all this really cool stuff, man. I mean, was there anything like in particular that jumped out to you in this interview?
Well, it was obviously filmed before SummerSlam because he has a title in front of him.
Right.
It was cool because, like I said, it's kind of kayfabe, kind of, peek behind the curtain because, Jim Ross asked him, hey, Brother Love, how did he come to be, bring you into the World Wrestling Federation? He's like, oh, well, he just kind of a stand-in for Paul Bearer before his arrangements could be made to get into the World Wrestling Federation. So I don't know, it was kind of neat. Like, it's kind of, like, I wonder if JR fed Taker these lines beforehand or not, like, knew the questions, because honestly, it didn't appear that he did, because you could see Taker, like, the wheels were turning in his head.
Yes.
He was answering, but he never waited, and like he just had an answer immediately. And I don't know. I guess his story is all. Is it all canon? Does it go back to like his backstory or not?
I guess. Yeah, he says that Brother Love was not able to join him right away. It was pretty funny. Which, just to sidetrack for a second, I guess it's a couple weeks ago now that we're recording this, but did you listen to the Brother Love episode of Something to Wrestle? Did you catch that story where he's talking in 1996 about how when the Ultimate Warrior came back, Bruce Pritchard said that he wanted to be in the crowd as somebody that Ultimate Warrior would pick up out of the crowd and train in his Warrior University or whatever, and then he would get him into great shape, and then he would reveal himself to be Brother Love, and then bring the Undertaker in and turn the Undertaker heel in 1996 to feud with Undertaker. I'd never heard that before.
No, me neither. That would have been cool.
That sounded really awesome.
Yeah, it really did. So, but like you said, they kind of go here and just break down his whole career in an hour, or 48 minutes, whatever it is. They talk about, oh, and now I will say this, JR, as much as I love him, he makes several inaccurate statements here. He said, your first pay-per-view event was WrestleMania, when you faced Jimmy Snuka. False.
Wrong.
His first pay-per-view was his debut at Survivor Series.
Right.
90. So, anyway, but yeah, and Taker comes back, I wanted to make a mark in the World Wrestling Federation, so I had to take down a legend like Jimmy Snuka.
And they have some selective editing in there, too. Like, they show his first world title win at Survivor Series, and they make it look like Undertaker just beat Hulk Hogan. They completely edit Ric Flair out of that clip, and Ric Flair using the chair in there. So it's interesting. They're kind of writing some people out, and they're also burying some people, too. They bury Hulk Hogan pretty hard. Undertaker says,
"What was your experiences like competing against Hulk Hogan?"
Well, at that time, Hulk Hogan was the top of his game. He was everyone's idea of everything that was good in America, everything that was good all over the world. And here I am facing the, what he liked to say, the immortal one. Well, we've come to find out that wasn't true.
Yeah, he'll go on to, we can talk in a minute. He buries Kevin Nash a little bit later on too, and some other WCW guys. But I did think it was interesting when they're talking about that first world title win. He said that it upset him losing the title because he could handle defeat, because defeat makes him stronger, but he was more upset that he just never got a proper rematch, and he ended up having to go into the Royal Rumble that year for the world title, and he wouldn't get another title shot again for another 2 years after that, till he was facing off against Yokozuna. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
It was, and that was probably part work, part shoot answer right there. You know, he probably was a little frustrated that never came full circle. He never got to really have that rematch again. So, but yeah, it's like you said, they edited that Ric Flair interference out of that title win. But then when they show the clip of him losing it back to Hogan, Ric Flair's right there on the outside.
Right.
So I don't know why they selectively. But that's another flub JR has. He's like, you lost it 4 days later or something. He says something wrong, and then Taker says, I lost it 6 days or 7 days later, which was actually 6, I think, as we covered here on Talking Taker. But then they go on to talk about SummerSlam 92, and JR calls a car that you drive for a funeral a hearse. Like,
it was interesting to me as we think back at your entrance in the hearse. Describe that for us.
It puts a T on it, and it's called a hearse, man. But
Freudian slip.
Taker doesn't sell it. He's like, exactly. He's like, I used the hearse to play mind games. This was kind of the start of me, showing my mind games I play with my opponents. I had to get Kamala intimidated because I don't care if you're from the jungles of Uganda or not. I'm going to show you that. And he's like, if you see that car coming down the aisleway and that's going to be your last ride, you're going to get psyched out. So anyway, that's kind of cool. But he talks about the UK fans and how exciting they are, just blowing smoke up the fans in UK's rear ends. But that's good though.
It was cool.
Taker's, he's full babyface in this interview. I love it.
He is, and he pretty much says that, his feud with Giant Gonzalez kind of sucked. Giant Gonzalez was big, but he didn't have any physical or mental abilities.
Which we said, too.
Yeah. He's not trying to put that one over. But he also, he gives, this is one of the coolest parts, he kind of gives an explanation for his disappearance in the summer of 1994, where he went away after the Royal Rumble and disappeared up into the heavens. He talks about, he basically says that, I have the ability to absorb huge amounts of punishment, but I am just flesh and bone. And there comes a time when you need to heal physically and mentally. If I don't have the proper edge and the mindset, then I need to step away and line up my soul and my spirit, because I'm not just size and athletic ability. But my soul and my spirit have gotten me to where I am, and if they're not right, then I got to get them back in shape. So that's why he had to go away that year. Yeah,
which, cool. That sounds good to me. He's like, so you had to get your focus back. He's like, yes. It was really cool. I thought that was good. Like I said, good kayfabe answer there for what happened. And because he was, JR was like, what happened? You were gone during summer. I mean, he was gone for like 6 months, right? He was gone from Royal Rumble to SummerSlam.
Yeah,
right?
6-7 months. Yeah,
6 or 7 months. So it wasn't just the summer. It was most of the winter and the entire spring and half the summer. So, but yeah, they explain that, and then they talk about, the Undertaker, and JR even calls him the Undertaker, which I thought was pretty cool. And Undertaker has an interesting line here. He says, I don't think the creatures really bought that. The creatures of night didn't buy that, didn't buy what he was selling. So I thought that was kind of neat. Again, they're kind of kayfabe, kind of shooting here. It's really neat little mixture at a time when, this is beginning of the Attitude Era, so at a time when kayfabe's still around but kind of not, so it's a really neat interview here. But then the next part is probably my favorite. I think you have most of this written down, so I'd like for you to tell us what just explain the urn.
Right, he was not shooting on this one. He was going leaning full into kayfabe here.
Oh, yeah.
He says it's a great answer though. Sure. It explains a lot. Undertaker says
the urn has always been as a symbol, a constant reminder. The Undertaker is powered by the spirit of gladiators past. That is what the Undertaker is. I am nothing more than a soldier. I was put on this earth, for this body was to harbor the soul of soldiers past. And I believe that truly. My whole existence is surrounded by that thought. And that urn contained the souls of these warriors and these gladiators and these soldiers that fought for what they thought was right, for causes and beliefs. And that urn was always a constant reminder of what I was there to do. I know that this sport is professional wrestling, and this is my vehicle to project my views on things. This is what I use to project the views of the Undertaker.
So, yeah, we learn what exactly the Undertaker is. He is a vessel for the spirits of fallen warriors for justice.
Warriors, gladiators, and soldiers for justice. Yeah. So let's just take a time out real quick.
Okay.
Does it get any more comic book? And like you and I both exclaimed from episode 1 of this, one of the main attractions of him is how, as a kid, you love comic books and you see this real comic book character come to life. And that answer right there is the most comic book like thing I've ever heard when it comes to wrestling. That is, again, take yourself back to being a 10-year-old, 11-year-old. That's so cool right there. Now I'm 32. I'm like, that's kind of cheesy and hokey. But at 11, that's awesome, man. Like, I wish I'd have seen this when I was 11. I'd even bought in the Undertaker probably even more,
Yeah,
so.
And I missed that stuff. Now, like, I guess I was trying to think of anything like that, and I guess maybe Matt Hardy's stuff is the closest thing we get to that, where he just he's full on leaning into playing a character. I do too. Yeah, it's great.
So, but there's a secret, ladies and gentlemen, Talking Taker fans. That's the secret revealed. That's what the urn is. What's in the urn? I guess the powder inside was the remnants of those warriors and gladiators. We don't know, but there you go. So.
Well, he talks about that in full kayfabe, and then we get a turn to reality as they start talking about his feud with Kevin Nash and Diesel, and then JR asks him a pretty interesting question.
Oh, about would you ever consider going down to Atlanta to rekindle that feud? Yeah. And Undertaker says no. He says, the WWF is my home. I'm home here. I'm on a pedestal here. I made my name here. Anybody down there has an open invitation to come up here and challenge me, and I don't care if it's one night or you want to sign a long-term contract. It doesn't matter. But anybody down there has an open invitation to come up here and challenge me. So I thought that was really interesting. That's a little, quasi-shoot moment there. But
yeah, I thought it was a good answer.
Yeah, but they brought up something neat, too, that, this was a one-off. And we mentioned that when we talked about it. Him and Diesel was just a one-match thing, and how cool would it have been to actually see them battle for a while? Because I know that in WCW, I love the Giant and Kevin Nash's feud.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. They weren't barn burner matches, but seeing two big guys that can actually go at it is cool. Like we mentioned, Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman from last year. A lot of people love that, seeing two big juggernauts go at it, or Brock Lesnar and any big guy. I thought it would have been cool to get some more Diesel and Taker here. But
I agree, and it seems like Undertaker thought that as well. He really, he talked fairly highly of Kevin Nash there.
Yeah,
so wish they could have fought some more.
Yeah.
He talked very highly of Mankind as well, put over their feud big time, said he brought the best out of him, and he took him to some really dark places as well. So he spends a good chunk of time talking about that, and then they kind of end things talking about the betrayal of Paul Bearer and their connection and how deeply he was hurt by Paul Bearer turning his back on the Undertaker.
And I thought it was interesting because he says, I didn't see it coming, I was betrayed, but he makes one point which is kind of neat. He's like, I think Paul thought I was on my last leg at the end of my rope. He's like, honestly, he could have just told me I'm looking for somebody else. He's like, it would have been a hard pill to swallow, but I would have swallowed it. It would have been okay. But I thought that was kind of interesting. He's like, So the betrayal, it wasn't that he wanted to move on. It was the way in which he did it, which is probably, more of the truth to it. Like, if this were a real thing, that's probably how he would have really felt in real life. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of neat. So, but he has a good line. He said,
Fortunately for Paul, he, I taught him everything that he knows about the darkness. And unfortunately for him, I didn't teach him everything that I know.
And that, God, that's classic, man. I love that line from whatever it's about. I love when people say that.
Yes.
It's awesome.
He also talks about how they talk about Kane and this revelation and this secret, and how it's worn on the Undertaker, and JR asks Taker, have you ever thought maybe it's just time to retire to the dark side? And Undertaker says, well, yeah, that'd be the easy thing to do, to just avoid this secret coming out and to go away, but I feel like it's important to stand up for what I believe in. I live with what happened in the past all the time, but I like to take adversity and meet it head on, and now it's given me a mission, because before I leave the WWF, I will destroy Paul Bearer for what he has done to me.
Pretty neat stuff, man.
Man. It's if you've got 45 minutes to sit down and watch it sometime, I think it's well worth watching. It's really interesting. It kind of flew by as I was watching it.
It did.
It was. It's another thing. Why is it not on the network? There's so much great footage out there that's just waiting to be put on there. This could be in the hidden gems section. I'd like to see all of them. I'd like to see all these guys' interviews. I bet they're all real interesting.
Yeah, because they kind of capped it off with his title win at WrestleMania, and he says something which I think is kind of a shoot. He says, the fans finally got what they wanted that night. He said, and I can tell because of the ovation that I got. He says the fans were excited, and he said my creature stood by me this whole time, and they finally got what they wanted that night, and they got the Undertaker winning the title, and it was a really special night to me. And again, at the time of this filming, he still has the championship, so he hasn't lost it to Bret yet. But really cool. Yeah, I encourage all you guys. Like I said, we'll probably put a link on there so you guys can see it and stuff.
For sure.
Kind of cool. Really cool. But that's kind of just something else to talk about before we lead in here into One Night Only. So we just wanted to add that to the show so you guys can know about that and go check it out for yourselves.
That's right. So let's dive into One Night Only, September 20th, 1997, as Undertaker takes on Bret Hart for the WWF Championship. Yeah,
and we mentioned that, or you mentioned that Shawn and Bulldog is the main event here for the European Championship. So again, it's weird how the WWF title has kind of become second fiddle to a more high profile match. But I have a little insight to that.
Okay.
I was doing some research and I found this clip on YouTube from one of Bret Hart's like spoken word shows.
Yeah.
And it was actually over in the UK, and it was in 2013. And we'll try to link it if it's not already up on our social media. We'll put it up by the time you guys are hearing this. So he's talking about this match. Somebody asked him from one of the fans asked him from the audience, and he says, when we got to the arena, Taker and I were wondering, why aren't we promoted on the show? We're not even on the poster. We're not on the advertising. They both speculate, according to Bret, they both speculate that Shawn and Hunter were, digging their dirty little fingers in there and, politicking behind the scenes and everything. But again, and he also says that he rented VHS in North America when it came off to watch the match back, and the match wasn't on there. And so I thought that was interesting. So I went online and was Googling images of VHS and Googling some articles, and sure enough, what I found, correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but from what I found, the initial VHS release had this match, Bret versus Taker, cut from it. I don't know why. It was only in North America. The UK had it, but North America did not have this on there. So, I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I believe that to be true, but it just doesn't make sense, especially because it's such a good match, too.
Yeah.
And it's the WWF Championship. It's one of the best matches on the show. Why not leave it on there? Why do you need to edit this show down at all? It's not like, I think the show was less than 3 hours, so I don't know why they needed to take anything out of it.
Yeah, I have no idea. Well, this is also the guy who, in the same sentence, says that on this interview clip, says that he and Undertaker were both undefeated in the United Kingdom, which is not true because Bret loses to Bulldog at SummerSlam 92 in the main event. So I don't know. His recall may be a little off. But, again, those of you, if any of you had it, listeners, if you had this VHS, tell us if this was left off. I think the DVD, when it came out, finally had it on there. But the VHS, we'd love to see a copy of that.
Well, that would explain why you and I have never seen it, and a lot of people probably haven't seen it until the WWE Network came out, and it was available for everybody to see. So, and it's just crazy, man. As soon as Bret Hart wins the championship, he's not in the main event anymore either. As we saw at Ground Zero and this show and Bad Blood, he's not going to be in the main event. It's sort of the same thing Undertaker was dealing with. He was never in the main event as he held the title. As soon as he loses the title, then he shoots up to the main event. It's just really, really weird time in the WWF, for sure.
Yeah. So, anyway, we got Vince, JR, and Lawler on comment. Oh, can you please go ahead and tell our listeners we were both idiots and last week we messed up. So.
Yes, here's a correction and omission from last week's episode. We were wondering, as far as the commentary team goes, why JR disappeared at Ground Zero, because obviously we both fast-forwarded through the show. We watched the beginning and fast-forwarded to get to the main event because we were pressed for time and wanted to record this podcast. And so we were wondering, what happened to JR? Why is JR not on commentary anymore? Well, of course, we completely forgot that JR, in the middle of Ground Zero, ate a Stone Cold Stunner from Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I've definitely watched the pay-per-view before. I remember that moment as Steve Austin is going through stunnering a new person on the roster, or a new official seemingly every episode, and it just totally slipped my mind, and your mind as well as we were watching that. So sorry for us sounding dumb. We should have known better. We should have remembered that, but we're talking about Undertaker, so we fast-forwarded through a lot of the other stuff, and it just completely whiffed on remembering that, but that is a classic moment, and so thanks for all the corrections, everybody.
Yeah, so anyway, back to One Night Only. We got JR, and he's recovered from his stunner. Lawler and Vince on commentary here, so Undertaker has a little brief promo before the match, and it's not very good.
It's not one of his best.
Yeah. But he says, basically you got one night only to prove you should be the champion, and you got no Shawn Michaels this time to help you out, like last time you beat me. And then he goes on and say, I'm going to expose you as the demon that you are. It got very Bray Wyatt-ish, and I don't know. It kind of, I don't know. It was weird.
Well, here's my question for you going into this, because he talks about exposing Bret Hart as a demon and that he's not the savior of these people. Who who's the heel in this match? Who's the heel and who's the face?
Well, yeah, that's a good question because on Raw, we always are told that Bret is a hero in Canada and a hero in Europe and everywhere else in the world he's a hero, but on United States soil, he's the bad guy. And so here in the UK, especially, he's aligned with British Bulldog, who's a super babyface here.
Right.
So Bret's a face kind of here, and then Undertaker with that kind of a little bit of a heelish tone in his promo here, kind of a heel, but he's, again, who's going to boo Undertaker at this point in his career? So,
well, he does get some boos.
Yes.
Both guys get some boos out here. It goes back and forth. It's a really, I hate to say it, it's cliche. It really is kind of a bizarro world crowd.
Yeah, it is. And they're doing soccer chants and stuff too, even like during the match. It's weird. But yeah, it's almost like Roman Reigns and John Cena walk out. The crowd doesn't. It's like the crowd is yay and boo for both of them at the same time. It's really weird. I don't know. It's very strange.
It is a little strange, but it is a great match, and they both work hard. Bret Hart attacks first, going into the corner. Undertaker then just returns the favor. It's very much the standard Undertaker opening to the match.
Yeah.
A lot of flurry of action into the corner. Undertaker coming on strong. But Bret Hart does something at the very beginning that plays into the match quite a bit. He undoes the top turnbuckle and unties that to expose the turnbuckle, which just made me think, man, when was the last time anybody did that? Like that's such a classic heel move that just kind of lost nowadays.
Yeah, I think it's somebody doing on Raw a few weeks ago with Bobby Roode, but it wasn't really like the turnbuckle pad. It was like the covering of the connect. I don't know. It was weird, but yeah, oftentimes you don't ever see that, and it's such a classic thing. We've seen it a lot of times in these Undertaker matches versus whoever he's facing. We've seen somebody expose the turnbuckle because they know he can take a lot of punishment. Let's try to use something extra to take him down here. So yeah, it's a very lost art. It's a lost art in the heel regime that we see nowadays on television. So. Oh, I want to say one thing that I forgot to mention, that Undertaker's sporting a Fu Manchu.
He is.
He's got it's like a goatee, but he's shaved two little parts in the bottom. So he's got a Fu Manchu and a skull patch that comes straight down.
A little bit of a different look there. I thought it was different. I didn't say anything. I didn't write it down because I wasn't totally sure. But yeah, I thought it was a little bit different looking. Looked good though. He's looking good.
Yeah, sure. That's fine.
Bret, after undoing the turnbuckle, I guess takes over for a minute, but Undertaker kind of comes back. Undertaker hits the perfect 10 landing after Hitman hits him with a clothesline to the outside. And I'm not sure if this was a little botch out there. Bret Hart jumped onto the Undertaker to the outside, and I think Undertaker was supposed to just carry him and ram him into the turnbuckle, but he kind of slips and it turns it into a spine buster, covers for it. But then he picks Bret Hart up again and rams him into the turnbuckle. So a little sloppy there, but still good so far.
There's some of that UK sweat or something on the
jet lag, maybe.
Jet lag. Who knows? At this point, they go brawling up the ramp, I think, and Bret gets body slammed on the ramp. And the commentary points out, the ref's being a little lenient with counting out here, which, again, remember that the ref's being lenient here.
Yes.
Remember that.
Yeah.
As we get to our finish here. Because they point out, the commentary, the ref's being lenient here. It's a championship match. He wants a clear winner. He's being a little lenient with the countouts and DQs. So that leads us into them going back into the ring. And Bret does something which is a clear heel move. He takes Undertaker's eyes and rakes him across the top rope.
Mm-hmm.
Again, what a lost move, man. Like, I love seeing that move.
He's definitely working heel. Like, that's the thing. It's a weird dynamic here. You'd think he'd be working the babyface because they're outside of the U.S., but he gets some boos, too. The fans are torn between them. Bret takes that patented, just full speed Irish whip into the corner that only he can do, and into the exposed part of the turnbuckle too. So really great bump there, and that's kind of telling the story that he's going to be selling that upper chest area, which he does a great job of.
He does. Yeah, the chest area, as Vince says.
Yeah.
So just say chest, man. It's just his chest. You don't have to say the chest area. Like, we know what it is. But then Undertaker does a heart punch.
Yes.
Punches him right in the heart, which I found out via some research I did because I was very interested. Because I think commentary even says we haven't seen that from Undertaker. When he was Mean Mark Callis, that was his finisher.
How about that?
I saw some YouTube clips, man. I did some research, and we can put those up if we want to too. But yeah, he used to use the heart punch as a finisher, as Mean Mark Callis. So a little homage to his former self.
I
don't
it.
know if that was intentional or not, but I think it's a really cool little Easter egg for those of us who are nerdy enough to dig back into the background and find that kind of crap. So anyway,
dude, I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, cool.
Adding that into the arsenal.
Yeah.
He keeps working that chest area. He does that backbreaker submission that we saw him you pointed out a couple weeks ago. He did on Bret Hart in their last match, too.
Yep.
Bret Hart is doing just a great job. You don't see somebody selling that area of their body very much, but Bret Hart, Bret Hart's one of the best. He does a great job doing it, and he's able to sort of swing the tide a little bit. He starts working on the Undertaker's legs, which has been his strategy in the other two matches as well. He starts kicking at Undertaker's legs, trying to work them over, trying to get him down, take him down to size, get him down the ground, chop down the tree, and then busts out the ring post figure 4 yet again on Undertaker.
He does that again. So, which again, it's always a cool. I never get tired of seeing that. He could do it. You know what? I wish he'd do it on all 4 posts in some match. That'd be kind of neat if he did that. Oh, that would have been man. Maybe he will. Maybe we'll see. Well, we won't be covering Bret anymore. Actually,
this is it. Oh man,
this is our last.
This is it for Bret Hart, the Bret Hart trilogy. Okay.
Yep, that's it. So this is his swan song with Undertaker here. So we'll never see that again. But that'd have been cool if Bret would have done that at some point. Yeah. Maybe somebody can show us that he did. But there's a couple hope spots here for both of them. Again, the crowd is just like Undertaker's. Comes back and the crowd's like yay, and then they're like boo. And then Bret Hart comes back and they're like, yay, and they're boo. It's just funny to see such heat for both sides. So really, really weird. But like you said, at one point here, Bret kind of gets back on top and he does a regular old figure 4 in the ring as well. Yeah. Which we saw that in SummerSlam as well. And he gives him double middle fingers again.
I don't get it, man.
I thought that was weird.
I don't get the strategy or the psychology, but. He turns himself heel there because Undertaker reverses over and starts to turn the figure 4 over, and the crowd's chanting "Rest in peace, rest in peace." So he's definitely got the crowd behind him. And I don't know if you saw this, but when he turned the figure 4 over, Bret Hart tapped out. He put one hand on the mat and just tapped like 5 times. He's just selling, but. I mean, it's nowadays that's a clear tap out, and that wasn't. Tap outs were still new at this point.
Right.
It wasn't fully. I guess they hadn't fully gone over to that being the way that you submitted. It used to be you just said you'd submit to the referee, but Bret Hart, I guess he's just selling, but he just taps the mat like 4 or 5 times. So the ref doesn't count it. And Bret Hart gets to the ropes to break the hold, but Undertaker should have won the title there. Kind of got screwed over.
again. So that's funny. I didn't even notice that. So, but yeah, I saw him struggling. I didn't even pay attention to the fact that he was tapping the mat. You're right, though. It would have been do you remember 6 or 7 years ago when they had this weird thing in WWF where you had to the refs were supposed to call the match as they went. If someone accidentally got pinned, that was it.
Yeah.
What if that had been the thing here? And the ref would be like,
would have won the title.
That'd have been cool. So, anyway, but yeah, bro, some punches and headbutts by Undertaker here, and he misses a big boot, and Bret gets right back on that leg, and grapevines the Undertaker's leg, as JR says, and Undertaker frees himself with an elbow right to the forehead, almost like a UFC style. Well, we see it nowadays with Brock Lesnar, and he makes people bleed with it. So, and then Bret starts the 5 moves of doom, and I think he hits maybe 3 of them, and in between each one's a 2 count. Which again, that's an homage to all of his matches, but both of their last 2 matches, he's hit the 5 moves of doom. In between all of them was a sit up or a 2 count, and he goes for that the elbow off the middle rope, and when he does, Taker gets his boot up here in his face.
And the crowd boos. Yeah. He hits the boot up, and the crowd can't decide who they're for in this one. But the announcers, on the other hand, I think they did a great job in this match. I really enjoyed the commentary. They did a great job selling the story of what's happening. They weren't talking about anything else that was happening on the show. They were talking about this match and the psychology of it, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so right after that, we get the double down, double clothesline. You do the double down, is what they call it, and you get the crowd the chance to come back. And at this point, Vince has a line, and I literally rewound it 7 times to write down the word that he said, because it's not even a human word. He says, let me see if I can actually mispronounce this correctly. He says,
you got to say it in Vince voice too.
Yeah. What, like, who has the greater recuperative ability? Because he doesn't say it in a mean Vince way. He's that over the top. Who has the greater recuperative ability?
Both men clotheslining each other at the same time. Both men down. Who has the greater recuperative ability?
And I was like, what? Recuperative ability? What does that even mean? That's not a human word. I looked it up. I think what he was trying to say was recuperability.
Is that a word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who can get their faculties together? Who can recoup from this? Who can come back? But he's adds 2 more syllables in there. It must have been on his calendar that morning. The words of the day calendar we keep saying, and he just miswrote it. I think recuperative ability. So
I spoke too soon about the announcers doing a good job. Never mind. Take it all back.
Great job selling the match. However, selling this brand new English language word. Maybe it's I don't know. Oh.
Is that one like the characteristics when you're going through Mortal Kombat and you're trying to pick a fighter, like recuperability?
I wish. So. Man.
Anyway, Undertaker, he gets up out of this double clothesline and hits a couple leg drops in between Bret's legs, but on the second one, Bret catches the leg and wraps Undertaker up in a sharpshooter.
Yeah.
Nice transition there, and the crowd's getting into it, man. Undertaker pushes out of the sharpshooter just like we saw at SummerSlam, but Bret goes right after him again. But just like we saw at SummerSlam too, Undertaker goozles out of it, and the announcers are getting excited here. Vince is like, "What a matchup!" And Jay Lawler says, "This is the full Monty."
I hope not.
I hope not too. I don't know if I want to see that.
I don't want to see the full Monty here, but we know what he means. But yeah, it's cool. The crowd is coming alive at this point. They're really cheering for the comeback here. Taker's got flurry punches and gets his big boot and his leg drop, which I've just always found funny, that a big boot and a leg drop, which Hulk Hogan used to finish people with, and Taker just has it as a signature spot. So
he was just burying Hogan the other day.
Yeah, exactly. So gets a 2 count here. Then Bret goes outside and decides to grab the ring bell. And he swings that at Undertaker, and as he does, he eats a big boot right in his face. So then I believe Taker goes to grab the ring bell, and as he's going to hit Bret with it, the ref snags it.
Yeah, he's not being lenient anymore.
Why does the ref always take the weapon from the good guy?
Exactly. It's not fair.
I don't know.
Anyway. Unfortunately, that allows Bret Hart to hit a little chop block on Undertaker, take him out, start working the leg again. But Undertaker recovers and boots Bret Hart out of the ring straight onto a camera guy. The guy shooting the actual footage, he gets knocked over and the camera goes sideways. The announcers don't know what just happened. They're like, what was that? I don't think the camera guy knew it was happening either.
He didn't see it coming. I had to rewind that 3 times to see what happened too, because you can't really tell. All of a sudden Bret's in the ring, and all of a sudden the camera's on the ground. It's just that was weird. So I think Bret gets thrown into the steps at this point too by Undertaker, and they get back in the ring, and Undertaker Irish whips him. And Bret they're in the ring, and Undertaker throws Bret to the ring post. And somehow Bret falls and slides chest first into the ring post.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen one take a bump like this before, but instead of hitting the Irish, instead of taking that Irish whip straight into the corner, he falls onto his side and wraps himself side. You just have to see it, man. It was
it's hard to explain,
but it looked like it hurt.
Yeah, sure. Sure it did. So I guess I was supposed to help work over the chest area type thing. So
yeah,
I don't know.
So.
But anyway, somehow that happens and they recover and Undertaker goes for old school and Bret doesn't let him hit it. He hits an arm drag, a huge arm drag off the top rope. It just, to me, it sounded painful. There's no way to fake that. So it just, a big old arm drag off the top rope and then a tombstone gets reversed into a roll up that Bret gets a 2 count with and here comes the finish, though. I want you to walk us through this.
Well, then Bret tries for his own tombstone. And I was thinking, well, maybe Owen Hart taught him how to do that one. It would really take Undertaker out.
Exactly. You got to sit down instead of land on feet. It really hurts a lot worse.
Well, thank goodness.
Really break the collarbone in the neck there.
Thank goodness Undertaker reversed it. And as he's reversing it, he kind of flips Bret Hart into the ropes, and Bret Hart does the old Mick Foley special and gets his head wrapped up into the ropes there.
Yeah.
Which leads to the referee, Mike Chioda, calling for the disqualification just because Bret's wrapped in the ropes?
He's wrapped in there and Taker punches him a couple times. He doesn't, go nuts on him. He hits him a couple times, and then, the ref's like, ding, 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 and the match, he calls for DQ it's 28 minutes, 35 seconds. This is their longest match we've covered. But, for some reason, he calls for DQ. He's supposed to have been lenient this whole time. I don't know.
And why? What is the DQ there? For what?
Well, you know what? I wonder if he counted to 5. We just couldn't hear it. Maybe Taker was punching him past the 5 count.
Well, okay, because Undertaker gets disqualified. They do announce that later on that Bret Hart won by disqualification. So that's the only explanation I guess I could think of, and it's a pretty weak one.
It's the antithesis of their SummerSlam finale, the finish to that match. That match was a beautiful ending that had Pat Patterson's hands all over it. Pat must not have come to England this night.
No, unfortunately, which sucks because it was. I think this is their best match.
Yeah,
out of the 3 that we've covered here, I think it's the strongest match. It tells the best story. It's playing off the other matches. They got great chemistry, really weird heat, but great heat all the way through it, and it's got absolutely the worst finish out of any of these matches. Which is a shame.
Yeah, if you could combine this match with the finish of SummerSlam, man, that would have been amazing. So, been amazing. But then after this, Taker's angry just like we are. He chokeslams Mike Chioda, and more quote-unquote officials come out to help Bret out of the ropes, and Undertaker chokeslams Gerald Briscoe, who almost dies on this chokeslam. Somehow he turns backwards, like he lands on his neck. I don't know. He
probably never taken a chokeslam before.
Oh, probably not. He didn't do too many aerial maneuvers back in his day, but it's a nasty chokeslam. But
Luthez never gave Joe Briscoe a chokeslam.
No. So anyway,
Bret and Owen are able to escape with the title. Owen comes out and helps Bret Hart get out of the ropes, and they run away for the title. Undertaker begins to chase after them, but then the ring announcer announces Bret Hart as the winner by disqualification, and Undertaker starts stalking the ring announcer, who's the German ring announcer, who's still on TV to this day, Carsten Schaefer. He's still on all the pay-per-views to this day. Yeah, he was the ring announcer for this show for some reason. Wow. But he runs into the crowd away from the Undertaker. Yeah. And that's it, man. Crappy finish, but great match.
Yeah, and it's weird because I wrote that the crowd at the finish here and all the officials getting chokeslammed and Bret and Owen leaving and the timekeeper, all that stuff we just recapped. The crowd is at the same time booing everything and also cheering everything. It's really strange. Really it's a really weird dichotomy that somehow they managed to boo and cheer. Literally everything is happening at the same time. I can't recall anything like that. It's really strange. It was fun. This was a fun match. It's the longest one out of their 3, but it felt like the fastest to me. It went by really smoothly.
It's really enjoyable. It's worth going out of your way to watch this one for sure. Even though the finish sucks, just remember that going into it. Travis, I think there might have even been back then. There might have been a lot of fans driving home in the wrong direction, upset after the ending of this match, or maybe after this show. They might have been so upset they drove on the wrong side of the road, or it would have been the right side.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Hard to tell.
They would have driven home on the right side of the road, which would have been not the correct side, but the right side, like we drive over here.
Yeah,
so,
the wrong side, but the right side.
Exactly.
The left side.
Wrong but right.
You're right.
Yeah. I'm glad we clarified that, Randy. Thank you for telling us that you drove home on the opposite direction from your house, not the opposite side of the road into oncoming traffic for 5 miles. I was a little nervous for you. Oh.
As always, we do want to hear from you, though, out there, all you creatures of the night. Hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Talking Taker and follow along on our journey as we travel down the road to the last ride. You can pick up a t-shirt as well over at tpublic.com and help support the show. Get that Taker Easy t-shirt. You can also help support the show by sharing the podcast with a friend, tweeting about it, leaving us a rating or comments on your favorite podcasting platform, and let us know what you think. And of course, join us next week as we cover one of the greatest WWF matches of all time, one of the most influential matches of all time, probably the biggest match we've covered up to this point on the show, the very first Hell in a Cell from In Your House, Bad Blood, 1997, as The Undertaker takes on Shawn Michaels, and we also get the debut of Kane. It's going to be so much to talk about. I can't wait till next Friday. Travis.
Oh, it's going to be a supersized episode. We'll try to condense all the build-up and stuff for you because we have so much to talk about and catch. And speaking of condensing that, I'll just go ahead and say at the end of One Night Only, Shawn Michaels wins the European title, becomes the very first Grand Slam champion in the history of the WWF. We'll talk briefly about that next week as it builds into Hell in a Cell. Ladies and gentlemen, if you were there in Birmingham, whichever one it is, if you were there, those of you, our mates, and if you're over there, please let us know. We want to know somebody. We do have somebody for next week's episode that's going to tell us about his experience at Hell in a Cell. So if you were there, please let us know. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, take her easy.
I'm here for a reason, and I will continue to do what I do. And in the course of defending the World Wrestling Federation Championship against whoever, now I have a mission before I leave the World Wrestling Federation. I will destroy Paul Bearer for what he's done to me.